Sometimes the smallest act of kindness plants a seed that grows for years in silence, until one day, it blooms in the most unexpected way. This is the story of a woman who gave 2 orphans a warm meal on a cold night, and how 15 years later, her kindness returned to her doorstep in the form of a luxury car and 2 familiar faces. Before we begin, think of the kindest thing someone has ever done for you, or that you've done for someone else, and ask yourself, what if that moment came back to change your life forever? The winter wind howled down the narrow streets of Greenwood, a quiet little town tucked between rolling hills and frozen lakes. Snowflakes drifted lazily under the glow of flickering street lamps, but the air was biting, sharp enough to sting exposed skin. Maria Rodriguez pulled her wool scarf tighter around her neck as she locked up the small grocery store she had owned for the past 12 years. The store wasn't much, a cracked sign above the door, peeling blue paint, and shelves that always seemed to have a little too much empty space. But it was hers, and that mattered. Business had been slow lately. The big supermarket on the other side of town had better prices and flashier advertisements. But Maria's regular customers still came to her for the friendly smile, the extra apple in the bag, or the way she'd remember their children's birthdays. She never had much, but she gave what she could. As she stepped out into the cold night, something caught her eye. 2 small shapes huddled together under the dim light of a street lamp across the road. They were children. Maria hesitated for a moment, her breath clouding the air, before she stepped off the curb and walked toward them. The boy looked about 10, his dark hair matted, his jacket far too thin for the weather. The girl was younger, maybe 8, with long, tangled hair and a scarf that looked more like a rag. They were holding hands, their faces pale and lips trembling. "Hey," Maria said gently, kneeling so she could meet their eyes. "Where are your parents?" The boy lowered his gaze. "We don't have any." Her chest tightened. They didn't look like troublemakers. They looked tired, hungry, scared. "Come with me," Maria said softly. They followed her without protest. Inside the store, the warmth from the small heater hit them like a wave. Maria ushered them to a little wooden table she kept in the corner. "What are your names?" she asked, heading toward the kitchen area in the back. "I'm Daniel," the boy said quietly. "This is my sister Sophia." Maria filled 2 bowls with steaming chicken soup, the rich aroma filling the air. She added slices of warm bread and poured mugs of hot chocolate. When she placed the bowls in front of them, Daniel stared at the food for a moment, as if he wasn't sure it was real. Sophia looked up at Maria with wide, grateful eyes before taking the first spoonful. "You can eat as much as you want," Maria smiled. They ate like they hadn't eaten in days. Maybe they hadn't. Maria sat with them, listening to little fragments of their story. Their parents had died the previous winter. They'd been living with distant relatives, but the situation turned bad. One night, they ran away. When they finished, Maria found an old wool blanket in the back room and wrapped it around them. "You can sleep here tonight," she said. "It's too cold to be outside." That night, Maria stayed late, reading an old magazine behind the counter while the 2 children slept on a makeshift bed of cushions. She couldn't explain it, but she felt responsible for them. The next morning, when Maria unlocked the store and stepped inside, the blanket was folded neatly on the table. Daniel and Sophia were gone. Her heart sank. She checked outside, but there was no sign of them. Days turned into weeks. Eventually, she told herself they must have found help. Maybe the shelter, maybe a kind family. Still, she often wondered what happened to them. Years passed. Life went on. It was a bright spring afternoon when Maria was restocking apples in the display by the window. Outside, the sun was warm, the air filled with the scent of blooming lilacs from Mrs. Patterson's garden next door. That's when she heard it, the smooth purr of an expensive engine pulling up outside. She looked up and saw it. A sleek black luxury car, polished to perfection, reflecting the sunlight like a mirror. The kind of car you only saw in magazines. Her first thought was that it must be lost. Nobody in Greenwood drove cars like that. The door opened, and a tall man stepped out. He was in his mid-20s, dressed in a tailored navy suit that fit him perfectly. His hair was neatly styled, and he carried himself with quiet confidence. From the other side, a young woman emerged. She wore a cream-colored coat, her long dark hair shining in the sunlight. She held a bouquet of fresh white lilies. Maria froze. The man smiled. Maria Rodriguez? Yes, she said cautiously. You might not remember us, he said, taking a step closer. But 15 years ago, on a freezing night, you gave 2 lost children a warm meal and a safe place to sleep. Maria's heart skipped a beat. It couldn't be. Daniel smiled. I'm Daniel. And this, he gestured toward the young woman, is my sister Sophia. Sophia's eyes were shimmering with tears. We never forgot you. Maria's hands trembled as she reached for them. Look at you all grown up. I thought. I didn't know what happened to you. Daniel explained. The morning after that night in the store, they had been found by a police officer. They were placed in a shelter, and soon after, adopted by a loving couple who moved them to the city. We had nothing that night, Daniel said. But the way you looked at us, the way you made us feel safe, it stayed with us. It reminded us that there was still kindness in the world. Sophia handed her the bouquet. We came to say thank you, and to give something back. Daniel handed Maria a small white envelope. Inside was a set of shiny silver keys and a folder of documents. It's a new grocery store, Daniel said. Fully stocked. Paid for. You don't have to worry about bills for the next 3 years. Maria's breath caught. I can't accept this. Yes, you can, Sophia interrupted gently. You didn't hesitate to feed us when you had so little. Now it's our turn. Maria's eyes filled with tears. She pulled them both into a hug. A week later, Maria stood in front of her new store. The glass windows gleamed, the shelves inside bursting with fresh produce. The sign above the door read, Maria's Market. She looked down the road just in time to see the black luxury car disappear around the corner. She smiled to herself. Kindness, she thought, was the only investment that always came back with interest.